to our first in the programme of Talking with Mark. I'm your host Mark, and today we'll be talking about corruption within football. The topics we'll be looking at is where the Italian game was brought into question about corruption into May 2006. Then we will move on with UEFA, FIFA, then former FIFA president Sepp Blatter and how he brought corruption into the game. Then we will look at England, as England has had their corruption over the years, and we will bring them into what we know about corruption in England. And then we will also be talking about the recent corruption in charges relating to Barcelona and also the charges that were brought against Manchester City this season. So let's get into the show. So in May 2006, it was known as the Calotape, which was several clubs in Italy, including Juventus, Fiorentina, Lazio, AC Milan, and Regina, and also executives from their respective clubs, as well as referees within the Italian league. So, let's talk about these clubs. So, Juventus were charged and found guilty for the 2004 to 2005 season. They were stripped of their Serie A title as they did win the league. And if you look on any website, including Wikipedia, it will say for that season, Serie A champions unassigned. Then we move to the following season, which is the 2005 to 2006 season. They were also stripped of the title, and it was awarded to second place, and that title went to Inter Milan. And as a further punishment, they were awarded last place in that league and relegated to the Serie B for the 2006 to 2007 season, and starting that season on -9 points. We move to Fiorentina. As their punishment, they were handed to be thrown out of the 2006 to 2007 UEFA Champions League competition and ordered to play 2 home games behind closed doors, as well as starting the season on -15 points. We move to AC Milan. They were ordered to play 1 home game behind closed doors and to start the 2006 to 2007 Serie A season on -8 points. Then we move to Lazio, who were found guilty as well and thrown out of the 2006-2007 UEFA Cup, ordered to play 2 home games behind closed door and started the season on -3 points. So them clubs already mentioned would have lost profitable significance with not being in the Champions League and having that sort of, because the 2 tournaments, UEFA Cup at the time and the Champions League, bring in TV rights and also sponsors for clubs that enter the competition. So it will have had substantial effects on the clubs. Then we move on to Regina, who were fined €100,000. Their president, Pascal Fati, fined €30,000 and ordered to resign as club president, as well as being banned from any football related incidents for 2.5 years. and the club executives and referees were handed bans and prison sentences, anything from 3 months up to 5 years on bans, and prison sentences were anything from 15 months going up to 2 years. But then 2 officials were acquitted after spending 8 months inside the Italian justice system. So these were what they were handed out. Juventus went up that season, and it just seemed like everything went back to normal. And there were further investigations included Inter Milan in 2015, but all charges were dropped as they could not find any evidence regarding Inter Milan. So now the next part of our programme is UEFA and FIFA. First we will go to UEFA, as this relates to, at the time, President Michel Platini. Michel Platini was, in his day, a legend. He was classed, and still is classed, as one of the best French players of the past. But it brought into dispute in 2011 when he received a payment of £1.3 million, but he had stated that it was a disloyal payment made from Sepp Blatter, president of FIFA. But when investigated, this payment was 9 years ago, and he could not justify the payment he received in 2011. He was then arrested on corruption charges and went on to, him and Sepp Blatter is in court recently, only to be found not guilty, but they were handed an 8-year ban from all football related incidents, but that got reduced to 6 years. Now we move on to FIFA. Now there is no secret that FIFA is head of many footballing scandals throughout the years, using influence by asking cash for contracts, by rigging voting ballots for World Cups. 1989 to 1999, as the bribes were awarded to marketing contracts, ISL, a company awarded many of the TV rights for World Cups, went under in 2011, amounting debts of £150 million, which were then sold. From the 2010 to 2014 TV rights for the World Cups were bought for £600,000 by a TV company who was owned by FIFA member Jack Warner, who was also ex-Football Association. Yes, that is our own Football Association, the English FA. He was an executive within the FA, which he then sold to different companies for TV rights for around £18 million, earning a profitable £17.4 million. He has made more money from working in FIFA than he did in his time working for our English Football Association. But corruption was no more on show in 2010 in Switzerland, where the headquarters for FIFA are, when the 2018 and 2022 World Cups were announced. Russia were given the 2018. Eyebrows weren't raised due to the fact of they were given in the same year the Winter Olympics. So there was no questions raised, but the 2022 World Cup, now that was questionable because everyone thought because England had bid for it, that they would get it, and they held a really good case to hold the World Cup with impressive stadiums around the country. But it was given to Qatar, as we know, as Argentina went on to win the World Cup. But social media sites were flooded, saying there was only one reason they got it, and it was because of their money influence, and that's why many people voted for them. And TV pundits and other people on social media were saying that it was rigged, when later on it was just before the World Cup in 2022, it was said that a leak had come out that it was actually meant to be given to the United States of America, which they have got the next World Cup. And to say the least, there were many outrages, not just from football fans and pundits about that decision to have it in Qatar, but from the LGBT community, as they were told they weren't welcome and the country couldn't guarantee their safety if they went to the World Cup finals. And this isn't the first time where bribes have been brought into question. When Jack Warner was accused of taking a £10 million bribe so that South Africa would get to host the 2010 World Cup finals, which he and a South African official denied these charges. Now we move on to the biggest corruption in football, and that is Sepp Blatter. Sepp Blatter has been the centre of attention of corruption from his election of General Secretary of FIFA in 1981, which then he became President of FIFA in 1998. He stood for 4 elections as President, but every re-election for Sepp Blatter, there was always controversy. Through his re-election, the people closest to Blatter furthered their own interests and agendas by bribes, cash for votes, and going as far as money laundering. There have been many suggestions that Blatter has made many dodgy dealings that FIFA have tried to investigate within football, but he's made these allegations go away with the tampering with evidence presented to him so that they would go away, and there has been no case to answer for. Somehow he has managed to not being a suspect in corruption as an official due to him supporting countries from Africa and Asia like China and Japan, but was eventually tried for corruption along with his UEFA counterpart Michel Platini, for which they were sentenced to a ban of all football-related issues for 8 years, which was later reduced to 6 years. We all knew Sepp Blatter was doing some kind of corruption, but no one could charge him. But now, by the time his ban is over, he would not be able to stand anyway, because he would be at least in his 80s, maybe even 90s. So, who knows? Now, we move to England. Now, there's been many corruption charges within the English game. So, England isn't short on corruption either, where 2 managers, we're not going to name who the managers are from England, admitted that backhanders weren't uncommon in any sport. These 2 managers admitted that they've not taken bribes, but there has been where bribes have been taken in any kind of sport. Let's take, for instance, Sam Allardyce. Whilst he was in charge of Bolton Wanderers, 2 different agents paid his son Craig so it didn't look suspicious to sign certain players for the club, which he denied these accusations and said that these were just pure fabrication. But whilst he was England manager, he was caught on BBC Panorama by an undercover reporter where he admitted to trying to bypass transfer rules, which led to him losing the England job. Also on this programme, Kevin Bond was filmed talking about when he was in charge as first team coach at Portsmouth, receiving payment from an agent for signing a player. Once his current employer, Newcastle United, saw this footage, he was then fired, and Newcastle released a statement saying Kevin Bond has been released of his duties after admitting what he did at Portsmouth, and we do not accept this kind of behaviour. So he was released of his duties. We move to Chelsea then. Chelsea have had corruption as well. Agent Finas Zahava was asked by the FA to cooperate over the transfers of Didier Drogba, Petr Cech and Michael Essien to Chelsea, where all three players were playing in France. Didier Drogba was playing for Marseille, Petr Cech Rennes, and Michael Essien played for Lyon. As well as the director of youth football, Frank Arnsund, was tapping up youth talent from Middlesbrough. A youngster by the name of Nathan Porritt reported offering the youngster $150,000 over 3 years to move to Stamford Bridge. So staying with Chelsea is that the agent refused to cooperate with the FA, so the FA could take it no further, and there was no evidence on Frank Arnsund, as many people are saying he covered his tracks. So there was really no case to answer for. And United have been in the limelight as well, as many of their transfers people have said, and the FA, but they couldn't prove it, is that some of their transfers the paperwork's not been quite up to scratch, and that United have then dislodged this, how can we say it, dislodged this accusation against them, and then the matter has been dropped. But now we go to recent corruption charges, and we start in Spain with numerous Champions League winners. Barcelona. We know Barcelona of the players they have had playing for them: Lionel Messi, Ronaldinho, David Villa, Andre Iniesta, Xavi, Carlos Puyol, Gerard Piqué, just to name a few. But recently they have found themselves in hot water, as they have been charged by Spanish prosecutors of paying a company owned by former Spanish referee Jose Maria Enriquez Negria, that totaled up to a total of €7.3 million. The club have admitted to paying him from 2001 to 2018, and they were only paying for reports and advice where they've accused the Spanish club of favoritism decisions by referees. That is what the Spanish prosecutors have said. You paid him so you could get favourable decisions which they have denied and said this was only for reports and advice from him. And then we turn our attention to Man City, who have been accused of 111 financial rules dating back from 2009 to 2018. But in 2008 was when Sheikh Mansour bought the club. But City have been asked to cooperate and give accurate financial information which relate to revenue, sponsorships, wages, transfers, and other financial suggestions from the club. Everything but everything to do with finance within Manchester City. City released a statement, and this is what Manchester City had to say. We are shocked by the Premier League and will comply with the league and fight this wherever we can. We will do anything we can to help with their investigation, and we will prove once again, as we have done over the last 4 years, that we are innocent against any wrongdoing. Then Pep Guardiola was asked in a press conference on his thoughts on this, and he turned round and said, if the club has lied to me, I will be upset and I will resign as Manchester City manager. But in my eyes, the club have been upfront with me from day one. And he also replied, we will fight this, but when we are found innocent, even if we get an apology that we were never done anything wrong, he says, who will replace the tarnished damage that has been done by this claim? You can't undo the damage that you have been accused of, and that we will just have that against our name. And you can see where Pep Guardiola is coming from, because you are talking about a charge that is thrown against you. It's like any walk in life. If you are accused of GBH, ABH, that will then stay with you for the rest of your life, no matter what. Even if you are proven innocent or anything, you will have that no matter what, and you cannot get rid of that. And this is what Pep Guardiola is saying, that now City have been accused of this and there is no way they can have it back, and there is no way, even if they are found innocent, they will get their reputation back. They will have to build it back. And like all the City fans out there, including myself, we will stick behind our club and believe in the justice system like it has done for several times. Anyway, that is all we have got time for on our first episode of Talk with Mark, and I would just like to thank you for listening, and join us next time on episode 2, when we will be talking on the first year of the war with Ukraine and Russia. So thanks for joining us, and I will see you next week, where that is our special, Ukraine and Russia. Thank you.